think it's appropriate
No.
that a convicted sex offender is a student inside of a public high school?
Can you just hold on just 1 second?
Well,
I'll just get right back to you on that. Thank you very much.
Why are you taking my microphone?
Tonight, our team of reporters is digging deeper into Secretary Schiraldi's views on juvenile crime. Jeff Abel examines the relationship between Schiraldi and Governor Wes Moore and its possible impact on the state's crime fight. We begin with Project Baltimore's Chris Papst, as his investigation into the 15-year-old's case uncovers more details about Schiraldi's stance on sex offenders.
Mr. Schiraldi, we've sent your office a couple emails concerning...
Vincent Schiraldi is the secretary of the Maryland State Department of Juvenile Services. For nearly a week, we have been trying to speak with him concerning a Project Baltimore investigation that sparked outrage.
Excuse me.
A 15-year-old rapist under the supervision of DJS, attending a Baltimore City high school.
We've sent your office a couple emails concerning Patterson High School and the convicted rapist who was a student there.
Yeah, and the comms folks are getting back to you guys on that. I think that should happen today. Thank you very much.
Okay, do you think... Well, excuse...
I'm shaking hands.
Okay.
You can have this.
Well, do you think it's appropriate that a convicted sex offender is a student inside of a public high school?
Can you just hold on just 1 second?
Well, you're the secretary of the Department of Juvenile Services. Why are you taking my microphone?
In late December, the 15-year-old pleaded to second-degree rape in Harford County, but he was not detained or committed to a DJS facility. Instead, the Department of Juvenile Services recommended probation and counseling, and he was ordered to have no unsupervised contact with children under 15. By early January, he was back in school in Baltimore City. When he returned to Patterson, the 15-year-old was facing an additional second-degree rape charge in Baltimore County for an alleged incident in April 2022. We cannot confirm if DJS knew about the second case when recommending probation.
Sir, can you just give me a minute? What do you say to parents who had students that were in class with a convicted sex offender and they didn't know?
So I think that you should get the response for us in the proper way and not do paparazzi stuff right outside it.
Paparazzi? I'm at a public event, sir. I mean, just what do you say to parents? That's all we're asking. What do you say to parents who had students who were sitting in class with a convicted sex offender?
I don't know anything about the case you've sent to me. That's why we're looking it up and we're responding to you. But thank you very much.
By law, Maryland does have a juvenile sex offender registry, but it's only for law enforcement. It's not public like the adult registry. And according to Baltimore City Schools, a juvenile who is not on the sex offender registry cannot be removed from the school unless there is an imminent threat of serious harm to the health and safety of other students and staff.
Do you think the legislature should look into a situation like this?
Schiraldi would not answer our questions about the situation at Patterson, but he has spoken in the past about public sex offender registries. He believes they should be abolished.
The recidivism data for people who have committed sex offenses is no higher, often lower than a bunch of other people.
Schiraldi, back in 2020, was a senior research scientist at the Columbia University School of Social Work. In May of that year, he took part in this online discussion called the Evidence-Based Case for Ending Sex Offender Registries.
Electronic monitoring, house arrest, intensive supervision.
In the video, the panelists argue that registries fail to keep the public safe, and the stigma creates an underclass of people who struggle to find a good job and safe place to live.
They're not subhuman because of that behavior, and I feel like we've let that go. And I think that we won't win the policy debate until we remind people that even when you do a really bad thing that some people find very disgusting, you're still a human being.
In the discussion, Schiraldi goes beyond just ending sex offender registries.
I see a lot of messages about abolishing the registry, and you could say the same thing about probation and parole, about community supervision, right? Like, I'm torn personally. I lean towards abolition of those things and to figure out a way to capture the savings and put it in the hands of community to help people thrive when they come out of incarceration.
Yeah, and the comms folks are getting back to you guys on that.
The day after we tried to speak with Schiraldi, his office sent us a statement, which did not answer our questions about the Patterson situation or his views on ending sex offender registries. The statement reads, "The Secretary is leading DJS in making critical changes to provide better services, opportunities, and results for the young people in their care. He believes in accountability for kids who are violating the law. Using a data-informed approach, he is leading the charge to create better outcomes for youth, families, and communities."
He should have gone to jail.
But these mothers, who say the 15-year-old Patterson student victimized their daughters, feel very differently. They want strict penalties for sex offenders.
This juvenile offender is allowed to continue to live his life completely normal. The court pretty much gave him a slap on the wrist. There was no justice for my child.
This story is far from over. Shortly after Project Baltimore first reported on the rapist in Patterson High School, a state delegate took action by requesting legislation that would change state law to ensure this cannot happen again. That part of the story, Monday. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Project Baltimore wants to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or a concern you'd like our team to investigate? Call the tip line on your screen or send an email to projectbaltimore@foxbaltimore.com. You can also find them on social media.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think the public sex offender registry should be abolished? So far, 100% of people who voted say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Governor Wes Moore has been a vocal supporter of Secretary Schiraldi, even writing the foreword for Schiraldi's book last year. Tonight, Fox 45 News is looking into the relationship between the two and how some say it is impacting the state's juvenile crime fight. Fox 45's Jeff Abel continues our team coverage. And Jeff, what are you learning about this relationship?
You know, Schiraldi has made his philosophy crystal clear, and while some critics may call it extreme, it appears the governor tonight could be calling it something else.
Young people are not just smaller versions of adults.
Almost from the beginning, Vincent Schiraldi has ignited a firestorm of opposition.
Doing better is no longer allowing Secretary Schiraldi to be in a position that there's a lack of accountability.
He is the biggest public safety threat in the state of Maryland right now.
But the one person providing unwavering support is Governor Wes Moore.
Now, we still have a lot of work to do. But if there's anyone who is up to the job, it's our Secretary of Juvenile Services, Vinny Schiraldi.
It was last year when the governor appointed Schiraldi to lead Maryland's Department of Juvenile Services, but their relationship goes far beyond Maryland politics. In a book Schiraldi authored, which was released in September, Schiraldi thanks the Robin Hood Foundation for providing the primary funding for the book's research. The longtime leader of the Robin Hood Foundation was Governor Wes Moore.
Wes Moore helped pay for Vince Schiraldi's research to abolish probation and parole.
In the book, Schiraldi makes his case for abolishing probation and parole and describes a fictitious scenario that seems all too familiar. Imagine you're the governor of a mid-sized state, he writes. You've got a progressive corrections commissioner who has come to you with a bold idea to get rid of parole and probation gradually and carefully over a few years and engage your communities in supporting and providing services to people who have broken the law.
Very strange that he's almost writing a template for him and Wes Moore's plan at DJS. It's like they had it ready to go, or at least Vince Schiraldi did, and Wes Moore is helping him enact it.
After reading the book, Sean Kennedy at the Maryland Public Policy Institute is convinced Schiraldi's philosophy is the governor's philosophy.
It matters because Wes Moore knew what Vince Schiraldi was about, what he stood for, and what he was advocating, because he paid him to advocate it.
In an email to the governor's office, we asked, is it a fair assumption that Governor Moore supports Schiraldi's findings and research? Did you provide any funding, or are you benefiting from the book? And who initiated your relationship through Robin Hood Foundation with Vincent Schiraldi? The governor's spokesman responded, detailing Schiraldi's progress in Maryland and writing, Governor Moore hired Secretary Schiraldi to help make Maryland safer and to improve the state's juvenile justice system. He is leading the charge to create better outcomes for youth, families, and communities.
Those closest to the problem want consequences, and Vince Schiraldi doesn't believe in it. And that's a luxury of leniency that so many Marylanders don't have.
Despite Schiraldi's claim of progress, car thefts in this city are up 77% this year. Most of them, we're told, are fueled by juveniles. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. We have also heard concerns from people in Schiraldi's past, including New York City, where some officials say he failed at leading Rikers Island. They question why anybody would hire Schiraldi with his track record.
Fox 45 News has sent a number of questions to Secretary Schiraldi, but we haven't received answers to all of them. Some of the questions that we still want answers to include, did you ever request Governor Moore to write forwards in any of your publications? If so, which ones? In terms of publishing your book, Mass Supervision, where did you receive funding for the research and production of the book?
To secure grants from the Robin Hood Foundation, can you provide the documents your team submitted? Who initiated your relationship with Robin Hood Foundation? And again, we have not received answers to any of these questions.
Accountability within DJS is a large piece of House Democrats' juvenile crime agenda unveiled today in Annapolis. Republicans mostly in lockstep with the plan, but they say it's missing one key aspect. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor has the breakdown.
We've been clear that any juvenile justice bill that comes to my desk must emphasize accountability.
Maryland State Capitol building, a packed house Wednesday, as Governor Wes Moore shoulder to shoulder with dozens of Democratic lawmakers announcing a packed list of legislative priorities aimed at combating skyrocketing juvenile crime across the state.
We need to make sure that actions have consequences, yes. And we need to make sure that our kids are getting the rehabilitation that they need.
We must hold our state and our local agencies accountable for improving the juvenile justice system.
Major changes in the comprehensive plan requiring police to provide written documentation of youth taken into custody, shortening the deadline for DJS intake decisions, strengthening staffing within DJS's ankle monitoring unit, increasing probation limits for youth offenders, and allowing children under the age of 13 to be charged with certain violent crimes currently blocked under controversial reform laws.
And we're focusing on making sure that the system actually works to improve public safety and improve rehabilitation.
If passed, crimes those under 13 could once again be charged with, including firearm-related offenses, car thefts, sexual offenses, and animal abuse.
These crimes seem to be consistently the issues again from police officers, from hearing from them.
And probation limits would be extended from 6 months for a misdemeanor and 2 years for a felony to 18 months and 4 years, respectively.
What's happening is that when someone is placed on probation, the access to services isn't happening quick enough. And so the length of probation could be halfway over or the majority over before they even get enrolled into services.
Overall, Republican lawmakers applauding the calls for accountability and clearer consequences.
I was encouraged by the tone of the rhetoric that we heard today, and we also appreciate that they recognize the system is broken.
Senate Minority Whip Justin Reddy only pointing to one missing priority, legislation that would repeal the current Child Protection Interrogation Act, which mandates an attorney be present before juveniles can be questioned by police.
They have this bizarre view that we shouldn't have parents and children be able to work together to answer questions about crimes. We need to change that law.
A change many state and local law enforcement leaders have been pushing for.
It stops that juvenile from getting the services they need because you don't know what problem they actually have if you can't talk to them.
It has become more difficult for police to question young people about anything.
As Democrats double down, calling the law misunderstood.
The police officers' hands are not tied. We've also built in a public safety exception, so there's a wide berth of latitude for them to effectuate investigations. So as long as it's not an interrogation, they have the tools available.
Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
While Republicans say they're on board with the proposal, they're worried some of the tough-on-crime measures could become watered down as the bill makes its way through the legislative process. Fox 45 News will continue to follow the legislation as it works its way through the House and also the Senate.
The Maryland Office of the Public Defender is highly critical of the plan, saying it's a return to decades of policies that hurt children and fail to solve crime issues in Maryland. The plan includes much of what state's attorneys across Maryland have been asking for, including most of the legislative priorities Ivan Bates and Aisha Braveboy laid out late last year. During a Fox 25 News roundtable earlier this month, a panel of prosecutors brought up many of the accountability issues lawmakers are now addressing.
All of these kids are getting arrested several times. So they commit a crime one day, they're arrested, they get out, they're arrested again. They get out, they're arrested again. And so by the time we get them and we're prosecuting them, they may have 3 or 4 or 5 J1s. And so the question is, why didn't we put anything in place after the first arrest so that the child wouldn't be arrested a second or third time?
What we're saying is, let's not even put this in DJS's hands. Let's say if it's a gun case, if it's a crime of violence, or any and all car cases, let's treat them as a special so they automatically go see a judge or judicial magistrate. We treat it like the regular criminal justice system.
State's attorneys mentioned juvenile car thefts, one of the areas where young people could start seeing stiffer penalties. Fox 45's Keith Daniels is diving into the specifics around the plan. We'll have his report coming up at 10:30. I'm Kai Jackson. Thank you for watching. Here's another video to watch. Also, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel.